Hi there, and good evening from Richard Fulmer and Richard's Rock Rambles. Yes, it's just about 9 o'clock here in Cape Town. Pretty dark outside, although it stays light pretty late here in summer. But enough about that, let's get on to some music. So we're still talking about albums that are 50 years old. And the one we're going to talk about today is an absolute classic. And it's an album which contains a track which every aspiring guitarist has to learn. Da, 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 da. You know the one. Smoke on the Water from the album Machine Head, which for Deep Purple was probably the high point of the Mark II era. That would be Ian Gillan on vocals and Roger Glover on bass, alongside, of course, the man in black himself, Ritchie Blackmore on guitar, Ian Pace on drums, and of course the late John Lord on keyboards. There's not a bad track on this album, and besides Smoke on the Water, there were some other deeper tracks as well that were really good, and a few other classics. It was their sixth studio album, and it was recorded December 71 at Montreux, Switzerland, and released on the 25th of March 1972 on the Purple Records label. Yes, that was where the song comes from, the casino that burnt down in Montreux while they were there. And they were using the Rolling Stones mobile unit to do the recording. And you know all the words to that song, Smoke on the Water. Well, you should. It was produced by Martin Birch. He actually produced quite a few albums for Deep Purple back in the 70s. Fantastic producer, also did work for Iron Maiden, amongst other bands. Sadly also passed away a couple of years back. But he had a particular sound to his records. I really liked the sound he got, especially with Purple. And the trade-offs between Blackmore and John Lord on keyboards and guitar were amazing. As I said, using the Rolling Stones mobile recording unit, that was loaned out to many bands, and at a price, obviously. I think even Led Zeppelin used it at one time when they were doing Led Zeppelin 3, if I'm not mistaken. So the album charted at number 1 in various countries and has gone double platinum in the States. I'm pretty sure it must have by now been platinum in the UK as well. So what do we have on this? So the one that I want to show you is actually the 25th anniversary edition. So that's the cover there, if you can see that. There's the guys standing. There's Ritchie Blackmore looking all aloof as usual. There's Ian Gillan. And that's with his Rickenbacker bass. That's Roger Glover. You can't really see him there, but Ian Pace and John Lord in the shadows at the back there. And then we get to the actual cover, the original cover, which looks really good on vinyl as well. There we go, Machine Head. Machine Head being that part of the guitar over there. So on this anniversary edition, you get the first disc, which is the remixed version of the actual album. And then on the second disc, it's remastered with a few bonus tracks. When a Blind Man Cries, that was a B-side. They put that on here as well. Maybe I'm a Leo, quadraphonic mix, and Lazy, also a quadraphonic mix. So you've got 3 bonus tracks on the second disc, which has been remastered. And then the first disc is the original album, just been remixed. I must say EMI have done an amazing job with this remastering and the remixing. The sound is incredible. They did it with this one. They did it with Fireball. They did it with all the classics, In Rock, and the later ones as well, Stormbringer and Burn and Come Taste the Band. I'm not too sure if they did the first 3. I think that might have been a different remastering. So let's go through the tracks here. The first track, Highway Star. Come on, who doesn't know Highway Star? That is probably one of the best hard rock anthem tracks ever. And it's a great track to start a concert. Some incredible drumming from Ian Pace. For me, one of the unsung drummers of all time, one of the most underrated. I mean, the guy's just all over the place. And rock solid with Roger Glover on bass. Blackmore doing his thing on the guitar when he was still playing fiery Stratocasters instead of doing all sorts of things in tights, which he does these days. That's another day's story. So that's Highway Star, with some great keyboard work from John Lord as well. You know, when these guys played live, they really stretched out, and this is one of the tracks that they really stretched out. If you listen to this on Made in Japan, you can see how they sort of used to jam as well. It was great stuff. Maybe I'm a Leo, that was the second track, also excellent. Pictures of Home with Ian Gillan in fine voice. This was Ian Gillan's best time for his vocals. I think his last really raunchy album that he did was probably Born Again with Sabbath. And I mean, recently being the ages and what have you, he's had to bring it down a bit. He can't do those high notes anymore. But around this time, you couldn't touch him. So there was Pictures of Home, Never Before, and then of course Smoke on the Water. I must say, you know, although it's an iconic track and it's one that everybody loves and it gets played at all the rock parties, on every rock compilation that's ever been, I don't think I need to hear it anymore. I've heard it 1,000 times. And if I do play this album, I usually skip that track because I know it. You know what Smoke on the Water is. Then it's a great track called Lazy. And that was also a really good live track. They used to stretch it out quite a bit. And it's almost got little bits of prog leanings in it as well. So that's Lazy. Then Space Truckin', another classic from this album. And lastly, When a Blind Man Cries, which is a beautiful song. Excuse me. A beautiful song which really highlights Ian Gillan's vocals. You know, he could do the screeching and the screaming, but he could also bring it down and put a lot of emotion and a lot of melody into the songs as well. And that's definitely with that track, When a Blind Man Cries. And then obviously I mentioned on the CD2, it's just been remastered with those 3 bonus tracks. So let me see if there's anything inside there that I can show you. So that's the CD there, picture disc. Opens up like that. That's the second disc. And then inside, it tells you pretty much the whole story. And there's the casino that was on fire, smoke on the water. There's the water and there's the smoke. Get it? Yep. And here's the whole story. Very fine print, you know, with CDs you've got to sort of read it like this. Well, I have to anyway with my fading eyesight and hearing and everything else that's going. There's the mobile unit, the Rolling Stones mobile unit, that truck that they used, as I mentioned earlier. There's Ian Pace with his very small kit, but boy, you could use that kit to full effect. There's John Lord with his Hammond B3 organ, listening through the headphones. And I think that's Ian Gillan with his back to us and Roger Glover doing his thing on the bass there. Actually, he's got a guitar there, so he's strumming away. And there's a great picture of the band. Classic Mark II era. In the middle, Roger Glover. There's Richie Blackmore with a very dodgy haircut. And there's the late John Lord standing there. And there's Ian Gillan in the white jacket. And there's Ian Pace. The 2 Ians next to each other. That's just some of the lyrics there. The rough lyrics written out. Such a classic album, this. And a lot of this album would just go so well live. You know, they became staples that to this day they have to play. There's Ian Gillan looking pensive with a cigarette in his hand, and there's Mr. Blackmore looking as joyful and happy as he usually does with his Fender Strat. Man never really smiles very much, does he? There's one of the ads. Ballsy is what they call the album, and it is. It's a very ballsy album. There's a great shot of Roger Glover with his trademark hat that he always wore. I think that these days he wears a scarf, and there's Rickenbacker bass. Also favoured by Lemmy from Motorhead and Chris Squire from Yes. Also love the Rickenbacker. There's a smaller shot of him with his Rickenbacker. And I think that's just an ad for the album. So yeah, if you're a Purple fanatic, I'm sure you must have this in your collection. If you don't, you need to get it again. If you've never heard it before, you're missing out. It's a classic rock classic. And this, along with Black Sabbath's Paranoid and Led Zeppelin's 1 and 2 and Led Zeppelin 4, this would be the sort of high point for Deep Purple. This particular era, at least. I mean, there have been some great albums with Steve Morse, and the great album they did with Tommy Bolin, Come Taste the Band. And then the 2 they did with Richie Blackmore when Ian Gillan and Roger Glover left Burn and Stormbringer. But of the Mark II era, I think this is the high point. Followed by, I would say, In Rock, the earlier album. Machine Head comes before In Rock for me. Not much in it. I might change my mind tomorrow. So there we go. Deep Purple, Machine Head. A must have. Next time around, another album that's 50 years old. Twin guitars, all started with this band. Judas Priest would carry on using it, Thin Lizzy, Iron Maiden, etc., etc. But for me, it all started with Wishbone Ash, and we're going to have a look at that amazing album called Argus next time around. Take it easy, guys. Please, if you haven't yet, subscribe down below and give me a thumbs up. Any comments, more than welcome. And I'll catch you next time. Cheers.